Hello, this is Andy Vey. I've been teaching online for the past 18 years, which feels like forever, whichever is longer. Mostly and lately I've been teaching physics and trigonometry, including the labs, but I've also taught astronomy and a little bit of chemistry online in the past. My physics class is organized on the menu on the left for students with lectures and homework, tests and exams, labs information. My trigonometry class, kind of similar, quizzes, lectures, homework, projects, tests and exams, with all the chapter homeworks in the homework folder, all the projects in the project folder, all the tests and exams in the tests and exams. You could also organize this part here by units or by chapters or by weeks. For example, then you would have week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, and so on. And then each one of them you would have week 1 quiz, week 1 lecture, week 1 homework, week 1 project, week 1 tests and exam. I don't think there is one method better than the other. This is just my preference. My students are fine with that, or at least I haven't gotten any complaints to the contrary. In my case, when I click, for example, on projects, then the students would see here all the projects for the semester. And here I recommend not going further than just one folder in. So you click on the left here, projects, and then when the student sees this, they would click on, for example, project chapter 1. And then that's it actually. There is no more folders in here. I think nested folders are just too much. You just want to keep it simple and that the student can figure it out easily. These are the homework and lecture folders in my physics class. I call them units. They could be called chapters. In my case, I use Unit 3 covers 2 chapters on energy momentum. Unit 4 covers 3 chapters on these 3 topics. It really doesn't matter. What I want to point out is that when I design a course, I start with any chapter or any unit other than the first. So for example, I start with Unit 3, energy and momentum. That has a couple of reasons. One of them is that that particular unit or chapter is similar to all the others, while the first one is usually an introduction. So when I start on Unit 3 or Unit 4 or continue with Unit 2, Unit 5 and so on, I do repetitive work. I kind of have the similar structure from one to the other, and I can see how my course develops. If I started with Unit 1, which as I said was usually an introduction chapter, then it's not similar to the others and it just makes work harder for me. The other advantage why I may want to start with Unit 3, and I'm going to click on this one here, is that I can make a plan, as it is here, activities and assignments, learning objectives, that tells me this is what I want to do for all these chapters, and I'm not overdoing it. So if I just take one in the middle, it says I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do this, I want to do that, and I'm not going to come up with a dozen items and now I'm thinking, oh, I did that for Unit 3, now I have to do it for Unit 2 and for Unit 4. It kind of prohibits me from going overboard. So I suggest to start with a chapter in between to see where you want to go with the class. Furthermore, I also did something that is called reverse engineering. I'm going to click on the homework quiz here, where I actually developed first the assignments. So I have a discussion question here. I have certain content questions, I have homework questions, I have questions on my videos, and those kinds of things. So therefore, I start with the assignments first, and that's how I then later on develop what materials do I need now for those assignments. You could do it the other way. I just did it this reverse engineering. But the main point, again, I want to point out is that I like to start with a chapter in between because it's similar to all the other chapters, and I'm not gonna, as I said, go overboard with things. Again, I'm going to click on Unit 3, Energy and Momentum, and I want to point out that I use Blackboard almost like a typewriter. I like to put in as little bells and whistles as possible because, again, you could just go overboard with that. So what you see here is really kind of looking like a typewriter. Yes, occasionally I do have something in bold or underlined, or this bullet list here, or here it's in green, but I really try to minimize it. Also notice that I just have one font actually, as well as one size for all of that. I also paid attention to that I have no typos, and as soon as I find one I try to get rid of it because it just makes me look better towards the students if I don't have typos. Occasionally I'm sure I have grammatical errors in there, but as a second language learner I don't think I ever get rid of those. One of the reasons I mention that is that unlike Microsoft Word that we're probably all familiar with and we can type along and put things in, the Blackboard editors are really kind of finicky, and over time, over the many years I've used them, I've become really careful in using them because they could actually mess up and make things look worse than they should. So again, I just like to prefer the typewriter design. I recommend a clear and repetitive design. For example, this is again Unit 3, Activities and Assignments, Learning Objectives, Homework Quiz, Computed Problems. Here's a link to a 60-page Word doc that I give to students. Then there's something here on that students have to do online. Then they have to have some reading, and then there are some videos that they have to watch. Now look at Unit 4. Activities and assignments, learning objectives, homework quiz, my videos with the problems, again a link to the problems that I provide. Again, they have to do something online, and they have some reading, and then they have to watch some videos. By the way, if this seems overwhelming and kind of seems to contradict what I said a moment ago, less is more. As I said, what I do is units. I don't do chapters. I do 2 chapters at once. I'm sorry, 2 chapters within 1 unit, and so they actually have 2 weeks to do all this work. So that's what I mean with the repetitive design. After a couple of units, students are definitely familiar with that. They know what exactly to expect in Unit 3, Unit 4, Unit 5, and so on. Of course, students do start with Unit 1. My preference was earlier where I just said I like to develop any other unit than Unit 1 first. But of course, students start with Unit 1. I make sure that I give exact instructions and that I avoid all ambiguities and get rid of them as much as I can, because if you have just one ambiguity in there, one unclear instruction, then you would have to email all students or put an announcement out or do both. In what happens then is that the troubleshooting actually produces a lot more work than having the clear instruction from the very beginning. So as I show here, this is what students have to do read the textbook, start the homework. Now from the homework, you read through the worked out problems, you read through the assigned chapters of the additional reading, you do these applets, you do these videos. So as I said, very clear instructions what they have to do. Take the practice test, take the proctored exam, it's in here as well, right there. I've been showing my physics class as an example. This is my math class, and in structure and as far as my recommendations go, they're really the same. I try to apply my own recommendations for all my courses. So I'm just going to look at something here, and that is that the first announcement to students is to go to Start Here and look at two things. One of them, of course, is the syllabus, and the other one is what I call the course write document. It is simply a syllabus test, and I'm going to open this one here. Students have to fill out this one here. Now, as far as I understand, very few people do that. I really like doing it. I've been doing it probably for at least 5 years, maybe even close to 8 years. And here is what it is. As I said, it's a syllabus test. Students have to fill that out and hand it in to me, and only after that do the first 2 units become available to them and they can start the course. Here's what they have to do. Read through the syllabus and answer these questions. Answer the question, answer the question. It's pretty much just copy and paste. It's actually really simple. It looks more complicated than what it really is. It's just copy and paste from the syllabus, and I make sure they have looked at the syllabus that way. Just a little bit about that, this is an online class, and you have to be proctored for exams. And you're going to work in Blackboard. So I make them look through Blackboard. Look at this one here. And again, it's pretty much copy and paste, copy and paste. And then these here I actually copied from the KPC website. Some questions, are you prepared for taking an online class? And then I may have a few additional questions. Here's the reason why I do that. Throughout the semester, prior to me having established that about, as I said, maybe 8 years ago is when I started it. Prior to doing that, I would regularly get what I call redundant questions from students where I'm thinking, look at the syllabus, look at the syllabus, look at the syllabus. It's right here in Blackboard. There it is. It's right there in Blackboard. Ever since I started doing that, what I call redundant questions have gone down to pretty much zero because I force all my students to do that. It's quite a bit of work that they have to put in. It's about an hour to 2 hours that they have to put in, but it's well worth the effort. And students they know what's on the syllabus, they know what's in Blackboard. They're still overwhelmed by my course, but they're going to get the hang of it. As I said earlier, what really helps is to have the same structure unit after unit after unit, or chapter after chapter, or week after week, and they get really used to my course, and they don't ask the questions that they ought to know, which is you have looked at the syllabus, you have looked at Blackboard, you know where things are. And yes, of course, if there are still questions, please ask me, or make sure to ask me. This is my trigonometry syllabus, and this is the chronological outline on that syllabus. And this is the only place where I put factual information such as calendar dates on it, and of course I double check that with the calendar. So here it's May 28th, May 29th, June 4th, and so on. And when you look at my class, the announcements here, I do that here too, but I tell them not the exact date when something is due, but it's due in late July, and then here it says see syllabus for due date. Due in late July, due in mid-July. Let's see, I'll proctor exam due by July 1st because I want to avoid Independence Day. Due in early July. The reason why I don't why I only put the calendar dates in one particular place is because if I make a mistake, I only have to fix one place and let the students know. But if I put factual information, and calendar dates is just one example of factual information. If I put factual information that it has to be exactly this way on this particular date or whatever that information is, if I put that information in several different places and I make a mistake, now I have to fix it in several different places and I have to find those places. So I really recommend when it comes to something like calendar dates, only use one. Only, for example, use the syllabus. That's what I recommend. You also have a calendar on here. You can use that as well, but then I would be careful on the syllabus because, again, if you change one, you have to change the other one as well. It's just more work. Part of why I have all my recommendations is to reduce the amount of work you put on yourself. So in this case, calendar dates only in one place, and then just refer to things as early July. Back to my physics class. This one here is for summer 2015. Here's the one for spring 2015, and it kind of looks a little similar. Well, at the beginning of the semester, as I teach the same class over and over again online and try to improve things and try to get rid of little mistakes and typos and so on, I make a course copy of it. So from spring to summer, and then I still have to add a lot of stuff here, and this is where it is, packages and utilities. There would be the course copy, and you're probably familiar with that if you have taught more than one of the same class, and you would check all of these. At the end of the semester, I do the following. I go back in here, Packages and Utilities, Export and Archive course, and I think I know the difference between the two, but I'm still not 100% clear on it. I think I pretty much export my class at the end of the semester, and so this one here exports the entire file. I put it on a big jump drive. It has to be pretty big because these files could be anywhere between 10 megabytes and 200 megabytes, depending on how involved the course is. And so at the end of the semester, I put that entire file here, May, the end of spring semester, I put it on. Actually, I also archived or exported it at the beginning of the semester because I had edited so much prior to the spring semester starting that I figured I might as well save it. You never know if Blackboard burns down or something. So I really recommend then you have a record of it, because after a few years, actually, they clean all the classes from Blackboard. The oldest one I still have available is probably from 2012 on Blackboard. All the others prior to that, they had wiped off the Blackboard server. So I recommend at the end of the class, save your work onto a jump drive that is big enough. I found this by Googling online teaching best practices. So here, number 5, principles of effective teaching online. Number 5, response requested and expected. Timely instructor feedback is essential for the online learner to manage their learning experience. Instructors are expected to respond to student inquiries within 1 business day. I'm in my office quite often and I teach a lot online, so I'm able to respond to students within just a few minutes, and even if it just means I received your email, but I don't have the time right now, I get back to it. Or it's going to be within a few hours, or within a day. Somebody may email me late at night, and well, I'm going to email early in the morning. And you don't have to be that quick just within a few minutes, but I think this recommendation here of 1 business day is a really good one, and then stick to it. I have seen best practices lists where it's actually the number 1 thing for students to say that we really want very timely feedback from the instructor.